Hey,
How are you?
I'm doing good. Tired.
Good. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm feeling that. Okay, well, we will start recording
Yep.
and jump into I don't know weeks anymore, of Collab Lab, cohort 8.
This is the end of week
Amazing work this
6.
week. End of week 6.
Yep.
So wow,
2 more
really?
weeks. Yeah.
Oh my God, how?
Yeah.
There's only 2 more weeks of this?
Yeah.
I'm
I feel like we
sad.
just wrapped up. Didn't we just wrap up TCL 7? Anyway,
That
they go
like
so fast.
time is simultaneously going the fastest it's ever gone and the slowest.
Yep.
So I don't know what's happening. It's a little bit weird. Anyway, amazing work this week. Can't wait to see your demos. Today we're demoing and then we're retroing. We're going to talk about what we appreciate, what went well, what we could do to improve. But overall, and I could just say this in the retro, but I'm going to say it now because I love you all so much. You have done a freaking brilliant job. And I say that as somebody who has watched almost every cohort go through Collab Lab. You have been the most technically skilled and have required the least amount of like technical mentorship. So your technical skills, I feel like, are pretty on point and you're very self-sufficient. And that like we can give you an issue. And if you have questions about it, you're so vocal about asking and getting to the bottom of it. And then just taking it and running with it and completing it. And like, it's been brilliant. It's been amazing to watch. I feel like you guys should just be a team building like a product that you're gonna sell. Like, amazing team. Okay, enough gushing. I'll gush later more. It's my favorite. With that said, let's do some demos. Who wants to start?
Wow, we're enthusiastic this morning. All right, guys.
I was gonna call somebody out, but I thought that would be rude. I'll let them just sit here in awkward silence first.
I used to be a teacher. I could only take that for so long before I just have to jump in. Okay. Let me get this thing going. All right. Can we see my screen okay?
Oh yeah.
Sure can.
All right, so our issue was to allow users to be able to delete items if they wanted to. So we, oh, right, hold on, sorry. Moving you. Okay. We rewrote the modal a little so that you could use it for other things. And then we created a couple of functions. One to handle when the delete button, which is down here in the item, is clicked. And so when the delete button is clicked, we are taking the ID of that item and saving it in state. We are setting show modal to true, so our modal pops up. If they change their minds, if the X modal goes away, nothing happens. If you say yes, it calls the delete item function, which sends in request to the Firestore to delete the item that we have in state, sets the modal display to false to make it go away, and then clears the ID that was saved in state. And then this updates because of the Firestore collection package that we used. Questions?
Yeah, that's great.
This is beautiful. This was like the same with the other PR too, that this code is so clean and easy to read. I'm like super impressed. Great work on this one. I also super like want to call out that I appreciate like one thing again that I feel like really sets this cohort apart is that a lot of cohorts in the past have gotten really hung up on like styling early on. And like we talked about, like, don't get hung up on it, just like do it kind of black and white for now. But you all have done such a good job of keeping it very basic. So I'm super excited to see what you do in the last couple of weeks to like really like amp the styling and make it look beautiful. I think it's like in a good state to be manipulated. So I'm excited to see that. But brilliant work on the delete functionality and that modal. A plus.
Yeah,
So
love to see
good.
all the little like single responsibility or like very small numbers of responsibility functions and stuff.
Yes.
So really nicely
So
broken down.
good. Other team? Other pair, I should say. We're a team collectively. Other pair.
One team.
I'll go.
All right.
All right. So yeah, there is a lot going on kind of, so please bear with me. And if there is anything that's not clear while I'm going through this, please feel free to stop me, ask me any questions. Okay, so this week, Shajia and I worked on an issue that was supposed to create status color for each item, depending on their next purchase date and also number of purchases. So the issue was that we had to sort the items based on their number of purchases and also next purchase dates, as well as if item was active or not. And after we sort by numbers, we had to also sort by, we had to sort alphabetically as well. So the way we approached this problem was to, in the end, we decided to have two groups, which are inactive as well as active. Inactive list is the items that number of purchase is equal to 1, or if elapsed time is twice as more as next purchase date. So we kind of saved inactive list in an array and active list in another array. Then we sorted them out and concatenated both of them in one array. And we used this list array to display the items based on their active and inactive states. Yeah, this part we still need to work on this. I think it was great idea to extract this in a state and use the state as a class name later to dynamically list the items. So basically what we have now is this. We definitely can work on this styling because we were not sure what was the best way to express inactive state or different states. So right now, soon has the red color and gold is kind of soon, and green is not so soon, and the inactive states are these colors.
This is great. I feel like this is one of the more complex issues, and you all did it beautifully. Like I don't know, Andrew, did you have a chance to look at the
I did, yeah.
PR again? Cool. Because I was like, I mean, the code all makes sense, and it seems like the AC are met perfectly. So great job. I wanted to make sure, like, note to Andrew that like we're capturing, if there was anything off, that we're capturing that in the AC for next time. Did it look good?
Oh yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. That's because it is a little bit of a complicated issue, right? Yeah, was there anything, Sujia and Luca, that you noticed about the AC or the way the story was written that was confusing at all, or anything we should maybe adjust?
I think in the beginning it was a little bit confusing in terms of the elapse time.
Right.
Yeah, actually, elapse, the word really made a huge difference because I wasn't sure what would be the difference between like now and last purchase date. So now and last purchase date is the elapsed time. So that should be equal, or it should be more than or equal to the next purchase date. So yeah, I think elapsed is a great word to also kind of express.
Cool. Nice.
Good to know. Yes, this one I feel like every cohort is like, that one was tricky. So like we can do something a little bit to like clean up the AC or make it a little easier. I think that by doing like, we're gonna do a new product demo video. And I think like if we can really explain like the functionality and like how this like algorithm kind of works, I feel like that in itself will be a good tool to use when people are trying to figure out this issue. So great work.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, could you go back to the code for a second? There's one thing, so if you go up a little bit, there was where you do the two mappings over the...
It's in the list.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there. So 89 and 90. So, because this, I think y'all did this also in the other one. So I just wanted to kind of just like make it like really clear, like the difference between map and for each, right? So I think in this case, again, it looks like you'd probably actually want to use a for each here because you're not capturing the return value of the map. So a map is, you map over an array. What you basically are doing is applying a function to every instance of the array and then capturing the result of that. It returns a new array with, you know, all the members of the array somehow acted on. For each, if you just need to, you know, go over the values, you would use a for each, and that doesn't return a new array at all. It just basically loops over the values. So it looks to me like probably more what you intended here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think right here, yeah, we did change this, but yeah, actually, I have a question about this part. So active.map. So right here, we are kind of adding active and inactive status to the item. So does for each also kind of change the array? So if we use for each, would it still add the status to the object?
It'll change the individual objects and return the same array that existed before.
Right.
But the individual items will be different. Isn't that right? Yeah. That sound right?
Sounds right. Yeah, I think so. So, but map, you know, if you capture the output of map, then you would need to use that new array for when you're actually displaying the items. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, it does.
Right, okay.
I'm thinking about this for 1 second. Let me wrap my head around something. Okay.
And I think we also still have one issue. As you join, as Andrew pointed, as you join the token, it doesn't render for the first time unless you refresh. So, but we are working on it and will be updated soon.
What do you think the problem is there?
I think we need to create state and use effect hook to update state as soon as we load the page.
Sounds good. Great work. So good. This issue is such a challenging one. So great. If you don't have time to change that from a map to a for each today, because I think that could be like a really good thing to bring up like in interviews or something, like the difference between those two things. Create like a quick issue in GitHub just to remind somebody to do it at some point. Because that'd be a really good one to have done. That'd be like a good commit, like a great commit message, like make the change, make a really good, robust commit message about why you're making that change, and then save that link somewhere so you can be like, here's a really good example of a commit that I did that has like some technical information in it and a good example of a commit message that explains the why of what you're doing. Great work. Any other thoughts on this one? So good.
I had a question.
Sure.
I remember like looking at the map and wondering like why it was working, because isn't it being used later on in the rendering? So it seemed like it might have been being applied anyway.
Well, the values are still changing. It's just like you don't need to use this new array, right?
It's basically because it's actually changing values in an array called A, right? Is that right? Or no, that's the item.
Those are the items.
Yeah,
So
so I guess
it's actually changing, it's updating the values as you would expect. And so map is totally fine here. It's just kind of unnecessary to use like a new array when you're just changing the items in the existing array, right?
Got it.
It's a good
That's one
question,
right,
though, Lily.
Andrew.
It kind of makes me want to like just play around with that and see what, because I've only ever kind of used them, you know, as they're intended, I guess. So I don't. It does seem like a side effect that I wouldn't expect. You know, like in functional programming, you don't like it should leave the original array unaltered, is what I would expect. So
Yeah,
it's like
that's what I thought.
Well,
Like the
is
value.
it leaving the original array like in the shape of the array, like as it's indexed intact, but it can still manipulate the objects inside of that array?
Yeah,
Could be that.
so
I don't know.
So it basically it's like another property status to each item that has a value of active or inactive. But I totally agree. This could be for each, since we are not returning a new array. We are just
pulling up the docs, Andrew.
place.
I'm in the console playing around a little bit. Yeah.
I'm
see if I
Doing the
can-
same thing.
The first place I would go is the docs to see like what does map do. But this is a good one. This is a fun one.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Well, we will look deeper into that. Somebody's going to write a blog post probably, right? Any other questions on this one outside of the map thing? I learned a lot just right now.
Yeah, I love the use of the spread operators to kind of concatenate that list. I think it's
Oh my
really
gosh, this like chunk of this file is so readable, and I love the comments. And I was able to like I said, every time in the past I've looked at a cohort's like this issue and been like, took me a while to like wrap my head around what was going on. And with this one, I was like, it is so clean, and it walks me right through it in like the most beautiful way that I feel like you could. I've never seen a group do it like this, but it's perfectly readable and it does the trick, and I love it. So great work.
Shajia is the mastermind behind
good job.
big amount of this.
Actually, I was gonna say that it was Luca's idea to do the spread operator, as far as I remember, but it was a team effort, so I think
There you go.
You guys did great. I love the teamwork. A+.
Mhm.
Okay, so one thing that I was thinking that is an optional suggestion is a little challenge. And I thought of this because I was like, gosh, they are so good at doing demos. Like your demos are so flawless and buttoned up and in this beautiful, perfect order that like you can just follow along. And like every time you demo, I'm like, I know exactly what's happening in that code. I know exactly what it looks like in production. And that was so nice and tidy. And this is such an important part of being on a dev team. So I would encourage you either on these last issues that you went through or your favorite issue that you worked on or next week's issue to take these demos that you're doing now and use Loom to do a video recording either in advance or afterwards, and take that and put it somewhere like on your portfolio or in your resume or somewhere to demonstrate how good you all are at demoing. Sound like a good challenge? Anybody up for it? Anybody like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I want to do it. Maybe. Okay.
Good idea.
I hate watching myself in videos again.
I've got a blog post I've been meaning to write, but then I have to watch myself.
One thing that I love, like, because we use Loom a lot on our team, and like almost every day I'll create a Loom of like an issue that I'm having or an idea that I'm having about something. And like, honestly, I have to record the Loom probably like 7 times before I'm like, yeah, that one's good. But then by the 7th time I've gone through it, I know it so well. Like I know exactly what's happening and can articulate it so well that like super comes in handy when one of my teammates is like, yeah, let's jump on a call about it. Cause I'm like, I've been through this 7 times already. Like, here's what's going on. And so it's just like a really great practice in being more articulate about things that you're working on. And it'll cause you to dig into like, am I using the word render right here? And so it's like little things like that. I feel like creating videos is good for. And you can turn the actual video camera part of your face off and just do the screen share if you want. So no pressure, but I think, and Andrew I'm sure has opinions, that this would like really help you stand out in a job hunt. Or like if you tweeted it, like check out my demo of an
Mhm.
issue I worked on or something. Like gold. Okay. So, any other questions about demos, last week's work, life in general? Great. I thought that you were all buttoned up there. Perfect. Perfect. Let me pull open the retro board so I can send you a link. I've been momming hard this morning, so I am not as prepared as I generally am.
Hi, Mommy.
Hey, baby. Projects. Today is July 12th?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, other baby.
Well, hey, before we move on, you asked us what was up, and I feel like Miss Lily missed a moment there. Come on,
Yeah,
Lily.
I got a full stack dev offer.
Yay!
Lily!
Or this week, last week.
Yes! So proud of
Amazing.
you.
Yeah.
You're the
What's
best.
the company? Where is it?
It's a small it's really small. It's called
Mhm.
walrus.ai.
Okay.
They like just raised a seed round. They actually
Uh-huh.
like the CEO, interestingly enough, they I think they started their company like remote first, even before COVID happened. And like one of them
Nice.
wrote a blog post and they mentioned like they're trying to base their company model off of like Zapier, Basecamp, and like another company. So I was like, oh, cool. They
Nice.
have
Awesome.
Zapier. So
Buffer
it gave me like a more
probably,
positive
too.
question.
Automated end-to-end
Good.
tests. Ooh, that sounds
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
That does sound cool. So, like, what are the deets? When do you like?
I'm still
What's
like
next?
thinking through it because I had another interview that I'm like still waiting to hear back from. But hopefully, like by this week, I think I'm pretty leaning towards it. Like just
Yes.
Nice.
Okay.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
While we're like here, I think this, like, we've got a little bit of time, and I just want to really quickly, Andrew, do you have advice for like going into an interview, like what a junior should be asking about? Like, what are some questions?
Yeah, because especially if the company is remote too, some places are just better than others at supporting people early in their career. So, yeah, the kinds of things that I would suggest you ask about. Ask about the onboarding program. Like, try to get a sense of how structured that is, how detailed it is, what kind of support. Like, do they, is there like something we do as Zapier is like you get buddies of different types when you start, so you have somebody who's sort of a buddy for the company, somebody who's not in your same function, but you'll also will be paired off with people who can kind of help you ramp up on different things. So, if there's kind of good built-in or intentional kind of, mentoring and stuff like that, that's good. Yeah, I guess getting a sense, well, I'm getting to know your manager. So I interview a lot of people, and probably in the last 2 years, one person has asked me, who is going to be on my team, has asked me, how do I manage a team? Like, what's my management style? What's important to me? And I'm just like, I just want to hire those people on the spot, because you're that's exactly what you should be asking about. As a manager, I should be able to tell you my philosophy of management, like how hands-on I am, or kind of, how I'm going to support you to kind of keep learning and growing, especially if you're early career. That stuff should be top of mind for me. So don't hesitate to ask that. And then other things like just kind of how, learning and development budget, that kind of thing. So do they have money for training, or for you to attend conferences or take online courses? Do they give you release time to do those things, or is that something you're expected to do in addition to your a regular work week? And then there's all the just normal stuff about asking a company about sort of trying to get a sense of how much do they value people. Some places they don't value people very much, so they're going to expect you to kind of put in time in the evenings, on weekends and stuff, and that's almost never a good idea long term for a company. It's the kind of thing that, if you're a small startup and you're really cash strapped and trying to get to market before somebody else or whatever, I still don't think it's a good idea, but you could see it's maybe a little more justified.
No, that's super helpful, because I'm going to talk to one of their other engineers this week to just understand their onboarding experience. I think something I've struggled with is asking about the culture. I feel like they'll obviously, most companies will kind of say what you want to hear almost. So trying to figure out the questions to ask about what is the true life, work-life balance.
It's
I don't know.
It's a little bit like if somebody gives a recommendation for, like, you know, if I ask somebody for a recommendation and it's not completely glowing, I'm like, oh, no, there's no recommendation that's going to be like, oh no, don't work with the person. Otherwise they wouldn't have been asked to do the recommendation. But if, you know, like if somebody's like, oh, they have an interesting style or something. I mean, like, you know, you try to have to like read between the lines a little bit. So it's the same with these types of questions. When they ask about company culture, yeah, they're going to highlight the good things. So you have to listen for what they're leaving out, and they'll kind of know what's important to you too, right? So
you can like, this is something that I asked when I was interviewing at Zapier, and I feel like it kind of like, because I feel like that same thing, like they'll lie to you if you're like, what's your culture like? So if you kind of like word things a little different and throw them for a loop and leave them like to scramble last minute coming up with an answer, I always ask, tell me like about a person who, like, what quality did a person who did not work out in this role have? Like if they've had this role before, like somebody who didn't work out in this role, why didn't that work out? And then they're like, oh, why didn't that work out? Because they were, and then they'll like list off things and it's like a little twisted. So it's like, oh, you have to be honest now because you're thinking on your feet.
I like that one.
When I was interviewing for Pew Research, the current company that I work for, I found this resource. I have to look into my Gmail, but somebody made a website where there's like a bunch of things that you care about. So the culture and your team, like stuff like that. So if you click on those, it automatically generates a bunch of questions depending. So if you want to know what questions should you ask for about culture, they will just list a bunch of questions that under that question you can ask these questions to your manager or the person who is interviewing you. So I used that, and that was very helpful. So I will send a link if I find. Hopefully, I'm just digging up in my Gmail because they send you an email, so you have to sort of sign up. That's like the thing, but they don't send you. But yeah, I will send the link. So that was real helpful.
Yes, could you post that to the job search channel?
Sure. Great. Another thing that like I don't think I would be successful without, like on a remote team, is a daily pairing. Like that's something that has like improved my experience astronomically. So if you can be like, what does my daily work look like? I'd like to have support on a daily basis. Like even if it's like a 10-15 minute meeting, that's like has been critical to my entire life. Like not just like for like dev stuff, but like starting your day as a remote person, like seeing somebody else and pairing with them and like asking questions is like sets you up for success to actually make progress and not like spin your wheels all day. So recommend.
Yeah,
Thanks, Alejandro. Okay, great. So I dropped anything else about that? Congrats, Lily. That is huge news. So and you're incredible. I'm so proud of you.
Appreciate it. It's been a weird job search. Long job search.
It's a weird time to be job searching.
Yeah, for sure. It really, really is. Oof. All right. Let's gush and reflect and share feedback. I dropped the link to the retro board in chat. And we've got our appreciations. We've got what went well. And we got what kept us from making progress or could be improved. So I'm going to give us 10 minutes. We will come back at 10:40 and go over these. If you are done before 10:40, drop the word done in the Zoom chat. We'll come back early so that we have more time for pairing on next week's issues. Good? Ready, set, go. 3-minute countdown. That looks like everybody, am I right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of us. That's how many there are. Amazing. Can you hear me? Somebody say something, because I feel like my headphones aren't working.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
totally.
everybody's just muted. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to it. Should I screen share? Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Screen share. Desktop 1 is the only one I've got right now. All right, then let's start with appreciations. And Luca, you're at the top.
Sure. Yes. So again, I appreciate being part of this team so much. Like every week, I'm getting more and more appreciation of this because we are learning so much, and thank you all for sharing your knowledge. I really appreciate all of this. Just wanted to say that.
I love it. Lily?
Yeah, kind of similar vein as what Luca just said. Like, super appreciate that everyone's communicative, supportive, which kind of makes the whole process really smooth. I feel like I think I was worried about like remote work on a dev team because like prior experience, but I feel like this has been like a really great model.
Ugh, that melts my heart to hear. I hope that this experience in some way has like prepared you for this potential like new remote job, because it is hard to work on a team remote. So happy to hear that. Shazia.
I just wanted to say thank you to Luca. I know we both had a busy week this week, but we were able to take out time and work, and the pair programming this week was amazing. It was a bit of a challenging issue, but we both were able to work together and make it work. And yeah, and I agree with what Lily just said. My work was supposed to be in person, but due to COVID, I started working remote. So this working at the Collab lab and collaborating has been a really good experience side by side. So I use what I learn here in my work. So this has been really amazing. So thank you.
I'm not crying, you're crying. Allie.
Oh goodness. Oh, I just wanted to give a shout out to all of the compassion and the patience. And I've not had to work remotely with teams, you know, like this, but I've certainly had to work with people in groups, and I've not witnessed sort of this level of patience and compassion in a team, and especially during this sort of, I don't know what to call what we're living in, but it's kind of given me, it's been grounding. So thank you all.
I love it. So good. Andrew.
Yeah, I just, you know, normally I would try to do appreciations for individual people, but you all are just like, you're so active and engaged, and the Slack channel, like the coordination, like the fearless questioning. I just love the, like that you just like, yeah, we don't understand. We're just going to ask, you know, there's no trepidation about that or anything. It really is kind of ideal, especially in a remote environment like this, that you just like, you're working out in the open. So thank you all for making it easier to mentor you.
Yes, mine kind of piggybacks off that same thing. I appreciate the questions so much. They're like not only good for you in the way that Andrew was saying, that like you all are so good at articulating them, like, and that is like a critical skill to have on a remote team. So great work with that. I appreciate the questions, especially because they help us on like a program management level, because we want to make Collab Lab amazing for everybody who's coming to it in the future. And so your feedback and your questions that you're asking right now are like paving the trail for like better AC and like building better apps and giving people better experience. So appreciate the questions. I also appreciate how confident and autonomous you all are. Like I was saying earlier, you ask the questions about the AC and then you just go do it. And it's amazing to see. And I appreciate it so much. You're like, I've seen like, even when you're not totally confident in what you're doing, like you pair together and you figure it out together, and that teamwork melts my heart. So you're amazing and I love you. Okay, Lily.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Allie for being really on top of, I think she was like the brains behind some of like our issue this week, and then being really responsive to some of the issues that the other pair brought up for like when our code was pushed and wasn't working, and like just resolving those.
I can figure out how to unmute. Yes, love it. Allie.
Speaking of unmuting, anyway, I say this sort of later in the other one, but I struggled with motivation earlier this week, and just the occasional pings in Slack, like, all right, I can do this. Okay, it's just nice.
Girl, that is all of us. I feel you there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people are like what give me energy, and like with this pandemic, I experienced so fewer people, and it's very hard to stay motivated when there's no people. So I feel that one really hard. Like just a ping in Slack is like, oh, you remember me? There's a human here. I'm gonna do something. Anyway, okay. What went well? It looks like I'm at the top for this one. You are all working so cohesively as a team at large, and it's beautiful. Like you apply the same styles and practices across the board, which is kind of like this testing one. It's like your PRs, I look at them and all of them look like they're coming from the same team. Like they're so consistent. It's like, I know that if anybody on this entire team submits a PR, I know exactly what it'll look like. And I know that it'll be super robust and it'll have all the information that I need. It's like your coding styles and your comments in the code and like just everything you're doing feels so cohesive. It feels like you're a team that's been working together and refining your practices for like a very long time. Not 6 weeks, but like 6 months. So amazing work, like vibing with each other and coming up with a style and sticking to it so that we can all move forward faster because we're organized. I love it. I think what's going well for me is that I always feel very in the loop about when I need to review a PR, which is great. Like I'm not having to, track anybody down or anything. You're all very good at like tagging us in like right where the PR is. And I appreciate that and love it. Luca. Oh, let me cancel this.
Yeah, I just want to say that our pair programming experience this week was amazing. I think me and Shaja and we pair programmed more than 1 hour, but it felt like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So it was very, very interesting to do that. And I throughout the week, communication was amazing, just updating each other about the changes or the next steps we want to make or any changes we want to make. So yeah, that was really amazing.
I love it. Lily.
Yeah, I felt like the issues this week were like super clear and concisely written, and also like really clean code from the other pair, so it made it really easy to test and review.
Sorry, unmuting so hard. Shajia.
Just pretty much what Luca said. The communication was good, not just with me and Luca, but just the entire team. I think it's really, um, I think communication goes a long way. So just communicating, even if you cannot work that day, helps a lot. So the communication, and everybody's always there to help, whether it's you or Andrew or anyone else. So that's amazing. Thank you.
So good. Went very well. I love that. Andrew.
Yeah, it's been interesting just kind of dropping into the cohort like midway through or whatever, and just seeing how you really are working really well together. I know you keep saying that, but yeah, you're kind of ahead of where I would have expected to see for you to be. And then just like the quality of the code reviews this week was really great. I mean, like hitting all the right notes. There was encouragement and there was, directive feedback, and there were like people asking questions and things, and it's just everything that I would want to see. As an engineering manager, it's exactly how I want to see my team kind of interacting with each other's code. I feel like you all get to the end of the week and you have a pretty good idea what the other pair did, and that's exactly what we want out of these code reviews. So nice job. High five.
Super high five on that one. Allie.
I'm just gonna sort of echo what other people have said. The issues were I know Luca and Shajia's was more complicated this week, but the issues were pretty well written. So it just makes it so much easier to go through when you have a nice, issue that you know exactly what you need to do, and you're like, wait, do I need to do this too? Does this need to be done? There's just not nearly as much of that as I found on other things. It's really nice.
Fantastic. I love to hear that. Oh my gosh, that's the end. Oh, things are going so well. Can I just overall say what's going well? Things, everything. It's amazing, and you're all doing such an incredible job. Okay, on that note, you're all brilliant, and I love you. Let's talk about what we can do to improve and what kept us from making progress, starting with Luca.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention just a little bit more information about one of the AC bullet points about the inactive state. I think it would be helpful to better understand what exactly the AC is asking. But I overall, the issue now and in the past, they are really, really, really amazingly written. Just a very small comment I wanted to make about this one bullet point. So
awesome. I love that feedback. Thank you. I agree completely. Lily.
Yeah, I think I had just like a fairly busy week and was just kind of mentally like stressed, which kind of took away from the project. But I think in the future, just I'll try to over communicate on like scheduling and what might be on my plate.
I love that.
Can I just say that something that's happened in a lot of cohorts is, I mean, this is a 2-month long thing, right? So like life happens, and at some point, somebody's like, oh, I had a trip planned, or oh, I have to take my dog to the vet. I can't or whatever, things happen. And so that's exactly the right approach, is just, it's a team, we'll get the work done, we'll kind of cover for each other, all that kind of stuff. But as long as we know what's going on with everybody, that's the thing that makes all that work. So it's the right instinct.
Exactly. Shashia.
Echoing what Luca said, one of the ACs was a bit confusing initially, but once Andrew explained it in Slack, it became super clear. And then when I read it again, the AC, it made sense. So I was like, why didn't it make sense the first time I read it? But it made sense once Andrew explained it. So maybe either adding that explanation to the AC or like changing a bit of the AC would make it easier. But otherwise, it was amazing.
It makes me think I should just take what I put in Slack and just put it in the card, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love this update. It's definitely one that like I've seen recurring throughout the cohorts. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. We will make the change for sure. Allie.
Because I struggled really hard with motivation at the beginning of this week. I had trouble getting going. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to maybe, obvious if Shajia has time, get a pairing session scheduled earlier this week so I can get going, get my brain involved and moving, so I'm not just like trying to force myself later to catch up. So
I feel that the beginning of the week is so important. I love that approach. Andrew.
Yeah, so you know, I haven't, like I said, I haven't been with the cohort the whole time, so I don't know what your sort of normal cadence is, but you know, we got to sort of Friday and Saturday, and I was like, okay, like kind of hoping to see some stuff, and then, but like you pulled it all together really well, but I don't know if that was typical or if this was, it sounds like a couple people, you know, like weren't available earlier in the week, so maybe it's not typical, but yeah, it's yeah, generally, you know, getting something done in the beginning of the week makes the rest of the week go a lot more smoothly. So anyway, you know, like I don't know whether this is normal or not, but I was trying to get a little nervous there towards the end of the week.
I feel you on that one. And like one reason, like that's kind of what I wrote as my first bullet point. Let's try and get the PRs up midweek if possible, even if it's in draft form, because it helps us, like anybody who's going to review it, know like, oh, there's stuff in progress, like we're getting close, we maybe just need to wrap some things up. Also, one thing I'll do is I'll go and I'll look and like kind of get my comments ready so that I can like be sort of on top of the game, or sort of plan like with my kids when I'm gonna have time to code review and stuff. But honestly, like I haven't been terribly concerned with y'all's PRs rolling in a little bit later, because generally, technically, they're pretty sound. And so it's like, if weeks had gone on where PRs were coming in on Fridays and Saturdays, and then they needed like critical feedback over and over again, I would be a lot more amped about like, let's get them in. I still want to get them in about midweek if possible, even if in draft. But you all are doing such an amazing job technically that I'm less concerned. So earlier PRs could be cool. Keep up the great work technically. It makes reviewing so much easier. Keep writing really clean code, because that makes it easier too. And then one thing that I do want to know, and I know we've talked about it before, but let's try and distribute the like actual actions that happen in GitHub a little more evenly. Like everybody should be at some point creating pull requests. Everybody should be committing code, because when Collab Lab wraps up, we want everybody to have like a nice show and tell when you go into interviews or for your portfolio or whatever it might be. So even if you're like pair programming, make sure you're switching on and off so that everybody's sending up some commits, so that you go in an interview, you can be like, you know, you don't want to be like, I know this commit says it's from Andrew, but I'm the one who like paired on it. So it's like, we can just kind of share that responsibility. Everybody wins. When one of us shines, we all shine. So, okay. And that is the last one. So some things that I heard reflected a few times over were getting this AC fixed and getting PRs in a little earlier. Is there anything else that we think we should note as an action item, or do those seem like sound choices for things that we should definitely try and improve on the next 2 weeks? The AC one obviously is like moot point now, but yeah. I want to make sure to put it in action so we do it. Anything else? Keep up the great communication. Good? Okay. Well, with that, I'm still sharing my screen, which is great because I'm going to pop in here to projects. And I'm going to go to this. It looks like our net, actually what I need to do is pull up who the pairs are, because I am so far behind. I have not even done that. Hang in there with me.
In the Slack channel.
Oh, you did it already? Great. Okay. Yep. So Lily and Luca and Shajia and Ali are pairs this week. And if we look at the issues that we're going to be tackling, 13 is, let me zoom out of the way. As a user, I want to view the details of my purchases to better understand my purchase pattern. And number 14 is, as a user, I want the welcome screen to look pretty, so it sounds like we're getting into styling a little bit. This first one is going to be creating a new view for the item. It's going to be like grabbing all of the details from Firebase and spitting them out so the user can see. And then this one, you're going to start getting hot and heavy with that CSS. So with that being said, any takers on either of these? If not, I will just sign them in a random order. Going once, going twice. Anybody love Firebase? Anybody love CSS? Okay. I'm going to just assign them then. Going once, going twice. Lily and Luke are going to take the first one, 13, because it was first on the list and you were first on the list. Lily and Luca. And that means 14 is going to assign Shazia and Ali. Perfect. Okay, so what I would suggest here, we'll go over like if you have questions about either of these things, but in this call, I definitely want to talk a little bit about how we should approach styling as a team so that we can make sure we're all on the same page and making like decisions where everybody has a little bit of buy-in so that we have like a nice cohesive product in the end that we all have clear direction on. So before we get into that one, for this one, creating this new view, Lily and Luca, or anybody, do you have any questions or thoughts about like, what do you think this looks like? What do you think the first steps might be? Are there any concerns that you have around creating this new view?
One thing I will note about this is that it's written kind of assuming that this is going to be a sort of an entirely new page in the app, but you already have a pattern set up for a modal, so you could also do it as a modal. So, you know, but the way that last AC, you know, when you're on the detail view, there's a back arrow or something that, you know, you could, if you're going to do a modal, obviously that would just be like an X, so you would close the modal or something, right? So you don't have to take that one necessarily super literally.
Totally.
Just when I read this issue earlier this week, just an idea. We don't have to do it this way, but I was thinking instead of going to a different page or a model, we can just, when a user clicks on an item, like a div comes like, you know, at the bottom of the list, sort of, I don't remember what it is called, but when you click on it, like a div would come up here at the bottom of that particular list, and it will slide up when you click on something else, or if you click again on the IC on the list. So that's another way of just had an idea of that.
So like a little like disclosure kind of thing, like you tap it and it kind of expands and then contracts. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
that could be cool. You'll have to think too about like how this, and this isn't in the AC, I don't think, but generally this app, and again, we haven't really gone over this, is designed to be like a mobile app. So while you're doing it, just kind of think about like how that would look in mobile and desktop. Again, not necessarily part of the AC, but something good to think about when you're like deciding what a new feature will look like.
A little hint, if y'all do decide to do the kind of disclosure thing, is that there's an HTML element, a semantic element for that. So don't feel like you need to recreate the wheel there.
I love that hint. So good. Okay. So the next thing is, no more questions on that one. Feeling pretty confident about what needs to be done there for now. You'll probably dig in and have more questions, and that's fine. We're here for you. Okay, the next one is, as a user, I want the welcome screen to look pretty. You can look at the example app if you want some inspiration, but feel free to use your creativity here and make it look however you want it to look. And what I would suggest is spend some time chatting about it in Slack, get some ideas about like what themes and like what styles you all like, and then maybe get on like a group session with the whole team to really like flesh that out and make sure you're in agreement on what you want it to look like, so that you don't have to like rewind next week when you have differing ideas. So I would highly, highly encourage some team collaboration on this idea. At this point, you can just use CSS as it is. You can decide on a framework that you want to use. It's kind of up to you, but I really would like you to decide as a whole team. Any thoughts on that, Andrew?
Yeah, because you are sort of laying the groundwork. Everyone's going to be working on styling after this week, right? So this is kind of setting some groundwork so that everyone can get in there and make progress that way. So sort of setting like a design direction or something. So, you know, it absolutely doesn't have to be fancy. It's just meant to be sort of an exercise of kind of adding polish to the app now that we have most of the functionality in place. Can you expand the
yeah,
story?
Sure.
Yeah, so, you know, that's not the fanciest design in the world, right? It's just, but it does look like it's intentional. So that's kind of what we're going for, I think. So there are plenty of CSS frameworks and stuff that you could use that would, I mean, it's things like buttons, form stuff, those are a pain to style manually. So it might be worth looking at a framework just for that reason.
Yeah, and this is like, it's good to decide all together too, and like kind of keep your finger on the pulse of all of that, because again, you're all going to be working on it going forward, and you can kind of use like, you'll be using a lot of what other teams are putting in place this week. So if somebody like styled the button here, you're probably going to use the same styling on the other views as well to have like a cohesive styling. So just making sure you're all on the same page and in agreement about that is a good move. Any other thoughts on this one? Oh, I have another thought. Yes, me. Thank you. Before you dive into styling at all, anytime you're ever going to do it, and you're the one in charge of like the style and the design and what's going to happen, create a to-do list first. Look at your view, sketch something up on paper or whatever, and write like what it's going to look like, because you will get so carried away with styling and it like time will slip away from you, and you'll spend 5 hours trying to figure out what background image looks the best, and you'll forget where you are and what you're doing, and it's a slippery slope. So put together a to-do list first about exactly what your plan is. Do that plan, and if you need to tweak it along the way, be intentional and like time box, because styling is so fun and so complex. Okay, sound good? I'd recommend starting a Slack thread if you're on this, so that you can kind of share ideas and stuff. There's some cool tools that like will let you find like a picture on Unsplash and then send it in there, and it'll like pick out like fonts and colors and stuff that it thinks would look good with them. And like, those are kind of cool. So if you get carried away with styling, I feel you. Okay, on that note, any final thoughts? No? Congrats, Lily, on everything that's going for you. Great job to the entire team for having such a cohesive, collaborative project here. I love it. I love watching you grow. We're going to get into styling. We've got 2 weeks left. We'll do a learning module next week. Then our final retros the week after. Okay. I love you all. Keep up the great work. We're here for you if you have questions.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great week.
Bye.
See ya.